childhood, my mother. I want them back. I want them back.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is everything you need to know before seeing Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Now, this film is a prequel to the 2015 Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron-led Mad Max Fury Road. Believe it or not, this saga is 45 years old, and even though Furiosa is a prequel, there is still a lot of lore that you're going to want to familiarize yourself with before we dive into George Miller's latest installment in The Wasteland. And before we get rolling, guys, be sure to check out our Furiosa We Can Do It shirt featuring an apocalyptic Rosie the Riveter, and our Thoriosa shirt featuring an iconic character riding a motorcycle down the Bifrost Bridge. Shopping our merch store is the best way to support our channel so that we can keep making videos just like this one, so thank you so much for your support. So, the Mad Max franchise began back in 1979 with George Miller's Mad Max. It was a high-octane, action-packed film centering on the character of Max Rockstansky, portrayed by Mel Gibson.
I'm scared, Thief. You know why? That red circus out there. I'm beginning to enjoy it.
Max is a former cop turned rogue survivor following the apocalypse and the murder of his family in this dystopian Earth hellscape known as the Wasteland. Now, this first film took place during the early days of the apocalypse, and there was still somewhat of a societal structure in place. Max served as an officer on the MFP, the Main Force Patrol. When an MFP officer is killed by a biker gang, Max decides to quit the force, and he and his family leave town. But they are hunted down, and Max's wife and child are killed. Max then spends the remainder of the film hunting down and killing the biker gang that robbed him of his family, showing that now even Max has abandoned the ways of old and embraced the cruel nature of the Wasteland. Subsequent films included Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. The Wasteland is now in full form, with society having completely collapsed. In Road Warrior, we saw Max go toe-to-toe with a gang led by this guy called Humongous.
You will know the vengeance of the Lord and Mangus.
Max helps this community of survivors who run a fuel refinery in the Wasteland escape the rule of Humongous, showing Max to be what I'd call a Wasteland liberator. In The Road Warrior, we see Max meet a young mute boy who is actually part of a huge Mad Max Fury Road theory that we're going to discuss here in just a sec. A theory that could completely change how you watch these movies going forward. But real quick, let's recap Thunderdome. And beyond the Thunderdome, we see Max make his way to a place called Bartertown. We see Max put in a gladiator-type situation, but after refusing to kill a character called Blaster, he is exiled into the Wasteland. Max is then rescued by this group of children seeking paradise, and they believe that Max is their prophesied savior.
Where's the waiting ones?
Waiting for what?
Waiting for you?
In each of these films, Max is put in a situation where he becomes a reluctant savior of those in need. Despite the murder of his family and Max's acceptance of how this new world operates, his commitment to helping those in need is always there, even if he's reluctant at first. Max represents one of the few remaining pieces of the old world, someone who hasn't completely lost themselves to the Wasteland. Furiosa is another one of those characters. Now, the character of Furiosa first debuted in the fourth film, Mad Max Fury Road, one of the greatest, if not the greatest action film of all time. Fury Road was just as much a Furiosa story as it was a Mad Max story. Now, I need to acknowledge the debate on whether or not Fury Road and Furiosa are in the same universe as the original Mad Max films. George Miller has never given a definitive answer on how the original three films connect to the new ones, so I guess it's really up to interpretation if they are in the same timeline. But there's actually a theory that claims that this Max and this Max aren't the same Max, but they do exist in the same universe. The theory is that that mute child from Road Warrior is actually the Max that we meet in Fury Road.
What?
One of the observations about Hardy's version of Max compared to Gibson's is that they have two totally different personalities. Gibson's take on the character was a little more composed, whereas Hardy's take showed a more feral side of the character. Now, in Road Warrior, we saw Max give the mute child a music box, and in Fury Road, we see that same music box. It's also in Fury Road that we see Max use a boomerang, which we also saw used by the mute boy in Road Warrior. And in Fury Road, Max doesn't speak much. He just does a lot of grunting, like the mute boy. So, we think it's possible that the young mute boy from Road Warrior could be the guy who we meet in Fury Road who has taken on the name of his hero, Max.
My name is Max.
Mad Max Fury Road opens with a narration recap from Max explaining the Wasteland.
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken.
After a nuclear war took place, civilization collapsed, and much of the world has become a desert wasteland with very limited resources such as water, resulting in survivors of the apocalypse forming various barbaric clans and slowly losing their humanity. Max is on the run from one of these groups called the War Boys. The War Boys are chosen at a young age to join the V8 cult as servants of Immortan Joe and the Citadel. They view their death as a great service to their master, a service that will land them at the gates of Valhalla. Immortan Joe is the tyrannical ruler of the Citadel who wears a plastic body casing under his armor to protect the skin sores that cover his body. He also wears a breathing apparatus that he hides under a mask to hide his weakness and maintain the illusion of strength. The cult of the V8 worships the V8 engine.
I'm a V6 man myself, better mileage.
Doug, do you even own a car?
Yes, I do. I just never told you about it because I don't want you asking me for rides all the time.
Oh, cool. Well, can I get a ride after work?
What are you talking about? I don't have a car. I am just a dog, and I am so small.
You forget it. So anyways, this V8 cult was created by the Immortan Joe to help manipulate his subjects. Creator George Miller has been quoted as saying, "These war boys have no choice. They're culturally impoverished. There are no books, there's no internet, there's no theaters, no radios, no music. All they have are the detritus of the past, and they refashion it so the steering wheel becomes a religious artifact. They do the sign of the V8, the engine they scarified on their bodies, because an engine is much more permanent than the human body. They chromed their teeth because chrome is such a rare thing." So like all cults, this is another cult invented by Immortan Joe in order to get people to die on his behalf. They're also referred to as half-lives due to their poor health and early mortality. Most war boys are sick with various cancers as a result of their environment. They require frequent blood transfusions in order to extend their life, and this is why they hunt for people like Max to use as what they call blood bags. Max is captured by the war boys and used as a blood bag for a war boy named Nux.
That's right. High-octane crazy blood filling me up.
Back at the Citadel, we see Immortan Joe emerge and give a speech to his subjects, and we see how he uses a very limited distribution of water to control them.
Do not, my friends, become addicted to water.
And next, we meet Imperator Furiosa. Imperators are the highest-ranking warriors of Immortan Joe's militia, and in the Furiosa movie, we'll learn how Furiosa wound up with Immortan Joe's clan and became one of those imperators.
Once again, I salute my Imperator Furiosa.
Now, in Fury Road, we see Furiosa is prepping to lead a convoy to a place called Gastown for a fuel run. On her way to Gastown, Furiosa deviates from her path. At first, her war boys ask if they're making their way to Bullet Farm instead. But we soon discover that Furiosa has actually smuggled the 5 slave wives of Immortan Joe from the Citadel, and she is taking them to the Green Place. The Green Place is where Furiosa was raised as a child before being kidnapped by a man named Dementus, who we'll meet in the Furiosa movie.
As a child, my world was forever changed, and he took it all from me.
The Green Place was one of the final remaining places where the Earth's soil could still produce vegetation. It was a safe haven run by the Vovolini, aka the Many Mothers.
I am one of the Vovolini, of the Many Mothers.
Joe uses his wives against their will for breeding purposes in hopes of producing a healthy male heir. Joe became aware of Furiosa's betrayal, and he and his war parties go after her. The war boy, Nux, wants to prove himself to Joe and insists on joining the convoy to stop Furiosa.
If I'm gonna die historic on the Fury Road.
Max is strapped to the front of Nux's car and is still being used as a blood bag, and he is put right in the middle of the chase.
How much more can they take from me? Got my blood, now it's my car.
Max is able to escape and join Furiosa and the wives, but not before having a testy exchange. Max is unable to escape in Furiosa's truck because of her custom kill switch, so he agrees to take Furiosa and the wives with him to escape the approaching cavalry. Max and Furiosa are distrustful of one another at first, but as they work together to escape Joe and the war parties, they develop a bond.
Max. My name is Max.
Nux, on the other hand, is still desperate to prove himself to Joe. He believes that if he sacrifices himself to help capture Joe's wives, he will be taken to the gates of Valhalla.
I myself will carry you to the gates of Valhalla.
Nux eventually realizes that he's being used as a pawn and that Joe doesn't care about anyone but himself. Nux then joins Max, Furiosa, and the wives on their journey to the Green Place. They travel through a swampland and get stuck in the mud, as does the approaching cavalry. While stuck, the recaptured wife known as Splendid dies from her injuries, and Immortan Joe learns that the baby within her would have been the healthy male heir that he'd been hoping for.
Another month? Could have been your viable human.
By working together, Nux, Furiosa, Max, and the wives are able to escape, and soon thereafter they find the Vovolini. Here, Furiosa learns that this group of women are the only remaining survivors of Furiosa's old clan, and that the swamp they had traveled through in their journey was the Green Place, and it's now just another decimated part of the wasteland.
The soil.
We had to get out.
We had no water, and
The water was filth.
it was poisoned.
Max derives a plan to return to the Citadel and take it from Immortan Joe.
We go back?
Back?
Yeah.
The The final battle ensues and Furiosa defeats Immortan Joe in a brutal fashion. She attaches a chain to his face mask and then throws the chain into the spinning wheel of his car, and Joe's face is ripped off.
I guess you should have called it their final face-off.
Good one, buddy. High five.
Yes. His face.
Nux has fallen for the wife known as Capable, and he sacrifices himself to save her and the others. Instead of sacrificing himself for the false promises of Immortan Joe, he sacrificed himself for the woman he loved and for the more noble cause of freeing the Citadel and his fellow war boys. Furiosa is on the verge of death following her encounter with Joe, so Max uses a blood tube like we saw earlier in the film to connect himself to Furiosa and give her blood so that she can survive.
Hey.
Furiosa and the others return to the Citadel with the dead body of Immortan Joe. The subjects of the Citadel celebrate that his tyrannical rule is over. Furiosa, the wives, and the surviving Vovolini are cheered by the now liberated people of the Citadel, and we see the young war boys lower the elevator and allow Furiosa and the others to ascend to the top. Once there, Furiosa releases the water that Immortan Joe used to use to control the people, showing that her and the Vovolini's new rule will be different than that of Immortan Joe and the cult of the V8. Max remains on the ground and watches as the Citadel and its people are given a new chance at life, and in this moment, Max can let go of the guilt that has haunted him. Now comes the prequel, Furiosa, that will show us her origins and how she became the Imperator and eventually the liberator of the Citadel. Originally, George Miller wanted Charlize Theron to return in the role of Furiosa for this prequel film, but he felt that the de-aging technology just wasn't there yet. So perhaps we'll see her in the slated sequel, Mad Max The Wasteland, which I'm hoping will give us the return of Tom Hardy as Max. But I highly doubt we'll see Hardy and Charlize Theron on set together for any sequels.
Or why not?
Well, I don't want to go too deep into it, but these two did not get along on the set of Fury Road, and their beef was one of the most intense on-set feuds that I've ever heard of.
Hey, I'm just glad that you and me don't have that problem.
Oh, shut the f up, Colton.
Yeah, hush it up over there before I rip your face off.
So guys, there's a recap of Furiosa's debut film, Mad Max Fury Road, as well as an explainer of the world of the wasteland that these movies take place in. Hopefully making it to where you feel nice and refreshed on the lore before you go into Furiosa. Big shout out to the writer of this video, Colton Ogburn. You can find his social links below. And let me know what you thought about Mad Max Fury Road and Furiosa down in the comments or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.